Wow, we've certainly had a lot of action in the last couple of weeks and months with the protests and the school shooting attacks on the NRA, this vicious, evil Nazi, and the AR-15 being made out to be the war machine, weapon of war, absolutely horrifying weapon. Well, as with any weapon, it is definitely lethal. For a firearm, it does its job. But we're going to go into very quickly, hopefully in a couple minutes, on why the right to bear arms shall not be infringed, even for the AR-15, and what place the AR-15 has in society, in a civilized society. All right, so we really only have four slides to look at, but we're going to have some graphics that hopefully make these points hit in home with some of the most effective arguments that I've come across for the right to bear arms. All right, so why the semi-automatic? Well, it turns out that you may need to fire more than once. It may be that you're being attacked by a gang, that you have multiple attackers. Um, in the barbaric civilization, the gangs rule. They roam the land and they rule their local fiefdoms. Um, the semi-automatic changes that because it makes the powerless, those who may be not in a gang or um, maybe not the strongest, maybe they're elderly, maybe they're a woman, which is, you know, we recognize women are not strong as men. It's just facts of biology. And sometimes you need to equalize against a potentially superior foe. Now, one of the biggest arguments for firearms and the semi-automatic is that you cannot know um, where evil will strike or how strong they will strike. And since you cannot know that, you need to be prepared. So, yeah, if there was only one aggressor and you had perfect aim, which we'll go into in a second, you may only need one shot, unless they're on drugs. Drugs change the whole game as far as just a single opponent because um, when a person's on drugs, they will continue their attack. Um, even if they've been shot once, even shot in a very vital place. So, yeah, semi-automatic definitely a guarantee must-have for any firearm. All right, so let's go into the value of the AR-15 in home defense. Um, Studies have shown that when operating a firearm, the accuracy is much, much less when the adrenaline is kicking, when the fear factor is in. And so that's designated by the smaller solid inner red circle. And what people have found is that um, two combatants, both with pistols, firing at each other from opposite sides of a bed, literally um, on the opposite, like leaned up against the bed on opposite sides, firing at each other, were unable to hit each other uh, with an entire clip for both sides. So they went through 10 rounds on each side, and neither hit each other. Um, a lot of that had to do with the adrenaline. It turns out that even across a bed with adrenaline, you cannot hit. The gun's shaking way too much. I've noticed that with my fire, when my adrenaline gets up, even when I'm not in fear for my life, um, the accuracy goes way, way down. So now when you don't have so much adrenaline, and you can control that with calm thinking, um, good breathing, nice deep breaths in, holding it, deep breaths out, even in the middle of a confrontation, you can keep the adrenaline down and you can extend that range of accuracy to where you see the outer circles for each of those weapons. Um, as you can see, the outer circle for the pistol can extend to the entire range of a room. Actually, my accuracy with a pistol would extend well into the living room. Um, that's definitely a good accuracy for me right out there. But for most people, they're pretty inaccurate with firearms. limited training would be the range of a room. Okay, now why an AR-15 in home defense? Well, it turns out while there are disadvantages, major disadvantages to the AR-15, which correspond also with a shotgun in the sheer size and length of the weapons, um, you can extend that accuracy by quite a bit. So when there's a lot of adrenaline, you might be able to actually reach the person from the other side of the bed with good accuracy. You might be able to reach somebody, even if your weapon is shaking quite a bit, you might be able to reach and be accurate, say, at the door. Um, the range of the rifle typically, something that's not too well trained, can extend through most of a home as far as its range goes. You could actually, from the hall, hit somebody at the door with reasonable accuracy. Now, accuracy is not just important in being able to hit the opponent, um, and hitting the opponent is not just important to be able to stop the attack, but it's also important to make sure that you do not hit an unintended target. So, say somebody that's maybe on the other side of a wall that you can't see. So now it's important to make sure that you can aim with that in mind to think, could there be anyone on the other side of a wall? Maybe a wall that's behind your opponent. So if you have an opponent over here, you should ask, could there be somebody on the other side of the wall, at the doorway behind that wall? So, that's good for thinking. But the main thing is being able to accurately aim and hit your opponent and not miss them, go through a wall and hit someone else. Okay. And that's actually one reason why I always advocate hollow point, because once hollow point hits anything, it tends to mushroom. Well, that's its design, and making the bullet much, much larger renders the bullet less able to go through solid structures. So, what it hits, it tends to stay where it hits. So it doesn't travel through multiple walls. It doesn't go very far when it goes through solid objects. Okay, so yeah, accuracy, being able to hit someone where you have somebody else near. So let's say, maybe the wife is trapped in the kitchen, 3 people come in the door, your range, if you can keep calm with the AR-15, can allow you to stop the intruders. So you can point the weapon at them. If they stop, it's good. If they don't and they start moving, you can shoot without worrying about your accuracy, endangering the lives of those maybe in the kitchen. Okay, that's the big deal about home defense. The big disadvantage would be the barrel. Because the gun is so long, like with a shotgun, you come around a doorway, that barrel comes out first, and if someone's next to the doorway, they can grab the barrel. And if anyone can grab the barrel or grab any part of the weapon, they can control the weapon. And if they control it, the weapon is useless or very nearly useless, and maybe it could be pulled out of your control. So larger weapons are not usually preferred in home defense, which takes us to the last scenario, which is the value of the AR-15 with range. So 2 things of note here. If you're against somebody, you have, say, somebody with a handgun that's firing at you, their range is going to be pretty limited, and your range will be much bigger. That's just the nature of a rifle, and the purpose of the rifle is to have longer range. So in any situation where you need longer range, especially longer range than someone with a pistol, the rifle is your choice. Now, in this particular case, it's very easy for you to get the full range at the dotted lines if you have a rifle, because the opponent having a pistol, their longer range is well outside of your range. If you see this diagram of with 2 houses, So firing at these positions, you don't have to worry, which means your adrenaline can be much, much lower because you know that you're well outside their range. They're probably going to miss you. Now, there are things that I do to minimize the chances of that anyways, as far as adopting a smaller target area. But even still, this enables you with the greater range of a rifle to have to be able to use the outer range. Now, those who are really good with the rifle, again, can extend that outer range by quite a bit. So this is a very small outer radius for somebody with a rifle. Um, but I hope this illustrates the point effectively that the person with the pistol should know that against someone with a rifle, they are well within the accuracy range for a rifle, and their effective range, their effective circle is probably going to be the smaller one. So with the bigger one range versus the smaller one, you should be able to tell that the odds of survival go to the one with the rifle. Okay, so there are a couple questions we have not addressed yet, which is why not just ban all guns, right? If we could magically make every firearm disappear, why not? And so that kind of goes back to the previous point where what if you're being attacked, let's say you're a female and you're being attacked by multiple gang members that are planning to gang rape you, okay? All male, right? So that's the purpose of the firearm, equalize that. So with a semi-auto, you can effectively defend yourself. Maybe they instantly run and you don't have to fire, okay? But maybe they don't, and they think, we have 5 times as many people, 5 to 1. We'll just rush them. And so with the rush, obviously you're gonna have to fire very quickly and stop them. So you want to stop rapes, you want to stop assaults, any kind of violence, then we need firearms. So given that citizens need firearms, especially handguns, um, or at least handguns, then of course criminals may have handguns in their possession. Given that criminals could have handguns, it's appropriate for engagements at range that we are able to have rifles. Okay. Yes, criminals could have rifles, but again, the rifle equalizes the fight. So even if you have 5 gang members with rifles, your having a rifle is absolutely necessary. Okay. Now we're not going to extend this to any kind of absurd arguments, mostly because the absurdity. Well, you know what? While we're in a good discussion, it's going maybe a little longer than I want, but why not talk about it? Because I'm certain that there are going to be people that use this argument to the next level. So let's just say that you have 5 gang members attacking you, and they've all got rifles, okay? And let's say you've got a rifle, okay? Why not just say, all right, well, that means with 5 rifles, you need a semi-auto grenade launcher, okay? The reason why we go against the semi-auto grenade launcher is because in the first place, you cannot target very well with a grenade launcher. One of these things that we oftentimes say about grenades is close enough for hand grenades and horseshoes, right? So close enough because we don't really care about how close you get. You just got to get close enough. So the issue with hand grenades or grenade launchers is that, and this same argument applies to all of these other ways that you could try to abuse this argument of why not just escalate what regular citizens should have. It's because let's just say you've got a gang of 5 people here, and there are a couple of innocent civilians that are nearby. Okay, how can you deliver accurate fire to somebody that's firing at you with a grenade launcher? And the answer is you can't. So the only purpose really for a grenade launcher is to kill a group in an area. Usually soldiers fight in a group. in an area. So obviously grenades have use when fighting against military forces. But against especially criminals, they don't tend to fight necessarily in a group, and they don't necessarily try to avoid being in the same areas as civilians, kind of like terrorists, will oftentimes do. So that same argument goes for a whole lot of these larger, more devastating weapons. Is you can't really give accurate fire against, say, a gang. Okay, so I hope that explains it. I think we've talked enough about the value of the AR-15, why range is important, why semi-auto is important, and some of the limitations of the AR-15 and long guns in general inside of homes. So the AR-15 is really a better weapon choice when outside. This includes anytime you're outside, including if you're in a car, and somebody decides that they're going to target you with firearms, right? So they get out of their car, they bring their firearms up, as they approach you, what are you going to do? You can drive away, see how quickly you can drive away, but while you're in range, it's going to be pretty bad for you. Or you can bring out your firearm and return fire. So I guess the biggest defense against those who would say, well, why take a life? Taking life is bad, is because the only thing worse than taking life is losing your own life. And anyone who would say that losing your own life is not worse should really rethink their logic. Human life, especially one's own, is the most important, the most valuable thing in the world. Now, this assumes, of course, that you're not endangering the lives of others at the time, and then our current laws have those provisions in place. So, which is to say that, the argument for the criminal that's assaulting you having a right to their life being also super important is that, well, once they engage in an assault, their right to life, though they might think is strong, obviously is not as strong. Those who would challenge the right to life of others, at least by the law's viewpoint, lose their own right to life, which is to say that the law allows lethal force against them. All right, so I hope that helps to, I guess, clarify why it is that we use rifles versus handguns, and why an AR-15, this weapon of war, is appropriate for civilians. Sometimes when you're defending your own life, it becomes a matter of life or death. It's kind of like a mini war. And in the end, the one with the rifle is probably going to be the one that survives. Okay, thanks for watching. Leave your comments. Feel free to talk about all the unwinnable scenarios that a person could be thrust into, where having a rifle or firearm is not going to, appreciably improve their odds for survival. Doomsday scenarios are always wonderful to listen to and watch. And then, of course, we can let the other side also contribute into the comments with all the reasons why, or all the things that a person can do to make sure that they don't get themselves into such dire circumstances. Situational awareness, and basically being able to catch danger and avoid danger before the threat realizes into well, I guess the best way to put it is the way that I always think about a threat or a risk. The best war won, or the easiest war to win, is the one that's never engaged. So, as always, try to avoid conflict. Sometimes means don't go into areas where conflict tends to happen. Notice when people are angry and stay away from them. And of course, if somebody insists on engaging you and your disengagement is not proving as effective as you want, you're not disengaging as quickly as you need, feel free to liberally use de-escalation techniques. I'm sorry. Hey, it won't happen again. Um, let's just let this go. All the kind of talk that helps people to calm down and take a breath. Let's let's think this through. What can I do to help you? All these kinds of things can help people to avoid the violent route. And of course, as always, if at any point any of those de-escalation techniques and disengagement techniques don't work, and you feel the need to pull your weapon, don't hesitate, because he who hesitates is lost. You hesitate too long, and you won't be able to protect your own life. So, all right. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. And like and share this video, please. Maybe we can stop the madness.